I'm going to talk a little LSU basketball here. As Jeff Borzillo from ESPN wrote a story, how Matt McMahon and LSU became college basketball's 2022-2023 expansion team. And you all know this story at this point. You know that everyone jumped ship, and there were literally no scholarship players locked into LSU for next season when Matt McMahon was taking the job. And I think this story that Jeff Borzillo writes kind of tells the story block by block, and you kind of know it. But I enjoyed some of the quotes that he pulled from this. And Casey Long, who was with Matt McMahon for 5 years at Murray State, had a quote here to Jeff Borzillo that I thought was interesting, and it's certainly not the way that I look at it. I don't even know if it's a realistic way to look at it, but it's certainly the way they looked at it, and it ended up working out. This is Casey Long speaking to Matt McMahon. He said, "I told Coach, this is a positive. It gives us an opportunity to lay the foundation. You want to build a house, you got to build a house on a solid foundation. You don't want to knock it down, have cracks in the wall. You want to start new and build it up. Now you have exactly what you want in the program, and we're fortunate to have an opportunity to do that." And that's a very optimistic look at the way to build a roster. The problem is, when I'm looking at this, I'm going, why the hell would anybody want to come here when we're going to have postseason bans and scholarship sanctions and we don't have a roster? And like what? And it turned out they were right, because they were able to convince a lot of people to come here through the transfer portal, through the high school ranks, had guys come back, and they built it the way they wanted to and identified guys they wanted instead of inheriting much of anything. I mean, I guess you could say that they've inherited Adam Miller, and you could say they've inherited Mwani Wilkinson or Justice Williams, but the fact of the matter is, like, those guys could have gone elsewhere, and they had to re-recruit them. So really, they didn't.
Yeah, and I think for Matt McMahon, I was worried. I was extremely worried early on. I'm like, yeah, it's Murray State. Like, yeah, you're getting a bunch of 3 stars. Like, yeah, you found Ja. Like, yeah, all that stuff's good. But I don't know if you're going to be able to battle with Kentucky year in and year out. And you're seeing what all these other SEC teams are doing, Tennessee. You're seeing what Alabama's doing. You're seeing what Arkansas is doing. It's going to be tough to get those type of guys. But the job he's done in the recruiting, and obviously getting guys like Adam Miller to come back, getting guys from this roster from last season to come back, getting, filling the roster out properly, I would say. I think he's gotten a proper amount of guards. He's got a proper amount of forwards, and he's got some bigs, obviously, with size and that can rebound and block shots as well, too. So he's done a good job building out this roster. Are they going to go undefeated during SEC play? No. But looking at the roster that he inherited based on what it's looking like now, I think he's done a phenomenal job getting this team back to having a pulse.
This is a cool little story about Mwani Wilkinson, and you can read the whole story on ESPN.com on the college basketball tab. Says McMahon reached out to every player on the roster the day he was hired. He worked deep into the night, reached out to Mwani Wilkinson at 1 o'clock in the morning. Said his pitch was simple. Go through spring workouts with us while you deal with your transfer recruitment. If you like what you see, come back and play for us. That was the pitch, basically. And Matt McMahon has quoted here saying, I didn't pressure anybody to go through the spring. I wanted them to see how the program was going to run. They wanted to be a part of it. That's great. If they don't, we shake hands. I wish them well at their next spot. That's really the approach we took. I didn't want to be a salesman. And so Mwani's quoted here is saying, he made it clear he wanted me to be a part of what he was planning to do. He just wanted to be sure that I knew how important it was to him to try to keep me here, and I really appreciated that. And it played a big piece in me making my decision to come back here. And that's a tough thing. When you've signed on to play somewhere else and you've got a great relationship that goes 3 years back with the previous coach, maybe deeper than that, if you were recruited as a junior or sophomore, and he's gone. And you've got a team of guys that you've spent time with, and they're all gone. And you look around, you got the Will Smith Fresh Prince deal where you're looking around going, well, there's nobody here. And it's easy to just kind of find greener pastures. And so for Matt McMahon to be able to convince him wanting to stay based on what he saw from some early workouts, I think is a positive thing. And we know that Will Wade was incredibly tough with the boot camps, and he was demanding, and they had to eat right and sleep with the thermostat at a certain degree. I mean, every detail was really important to Will Wade. And so for Matt McMahon to come in and I think probably paint a similar picture from an attention to detail standpoint, and then what he demands, I think is a really good thing. Yeah, it is. And I think, you hear Coach McMahon talk and you see his values and what he stands for and everything he's believed in. And I think that's come on full display with how it's been reacting with the recruiting portal and with how he's gotten guys to come to Baton Rouge. And so I'm excited to see, the X's and O's and kind of how he's going to attack the SEC, because I think that's going to be a challenge in itself. But just watching how he's going about this and approaching it, I'm very happy to see, what he's going to do for the Tigers in basketball. No, for sure. And I think they start to talk about what KJ Williams meant to Murray State and what Juice Hill meant to Murray State, and Trey Hannibal, what they meant. And Hill was at one time committed to Arkansas before Eric Musselman took over, and KJ Williams was considered one of the best transfers available on the market. And McMahon is quoted as saying, I know it's different playing against Tennessee Tech and playing against Kentucky. I'm well aware of that. But I do think the guys we brought from Murray State turned themselves into high major players. KJ would have been at a top 10 program in the country. Juice and Trey had multiple Power 5 offers right away. They represented a little over 50% of our scoring off a 31-3 team that was ranked in the top 25 in the country the last 3 months of the year. They understand that culture, that locker room piece we want to build, and they know what my standards and expectations are, and they're not 17-year-old high school seniors. And I think that is something that, I'm obviously priority one for a fan is, what can you do on the floor for me? Like, what can KJ Williams bring in terms of points and rebounds? What is Juice Hill going to do running the point, shooting the three? Can Trey Hannibal come off the bench and play defense and score? Like, that's important. But there's a piece to this that is this, while you're bringing in a new coach, you bring three of the biggest pieces from that system with those expectations and that offensive and defensive plans, and they can help their teammates implement it. I think that those three guys are so important to the transition from the Will Wade era to the Matt McMahon era here.
Yeah, it is. And I think having those guys and seeing how they're going to play, it's going to be huge, man. I think we kind of saw last year how Coach Wade went about doing things and kind of overloading one position and kind of how that puts you behind the eight ball. So you never want to put yourself in that situation again. You want to have a roster from top to bottom with all the positions, and you be multiple. You have guys that can guard multiple things and do certain things. So I think that's the way Coach McMahon's doing, and so I'm excited to see how these guys go out there and battle.
I'm excited for basketball season. Didn't know if I could say that. Really wasn't going to say that at all as of March once the season ended and then Will Wade was gone. But I think this team's got a chance to be fun to watch. I'm just concerned, as I stated this a couple of weeks ago, I had a couple of conversations with some people on the inside of this whole deal, and I was asking about the decision time for this basketball sanctions. And there's a feeling that they're not that close. There's a feeling that there's still a lot of information the NCAA is going to be presented with that they're going to have to interpret and then make their ruling. I'm petrified it's going to come in the middle of February. They've done it twice in a row. We did it right before the end of the season in 19 with the drop-in of the information, and then they did it again right before the NCAA tournament this year. I have absolutely no reason to believe they won't do the exact same thing come February again, which just sucks. Because I think it's going to be a team that's right there, a couple of games over 500 in the league, with a couple of big opportunities coming, right there on the bubble, and then it comes down postseason ban. And just for the kids that had nothing to do with this, it just sucks. But that's part of it. It's part of it when you get caught.
Yeah, the NCAA isn't going to do LSU basketball any favors. It seems like they got an axe to grind at this point. And I just hope it's not as bad as I think it's going to be. It just doesn't feel good right now. And it's like that dark cloud, it's kind of a little smaller than it was before when Coach Wade was a coach, but that dark cloud is still there. And with the NCAA, the way they do, it's just the inconsistency. Yeah, who knows what they're going to do. I just don't think it'll be good for the Tigers. Thanks so much for watching Hunt Hill on YouTube.
Now do us a favor. Hit the red subscribe button below and throw us a like. We'll see you next time.